everyone. Good afternoon. We will be beginning now. So I welcome everybody to this session on business model canvas. And what better way to learn about business modeling, how to change business models, how to design business models, than to learn from an expert in the field. And we have just the speaker for that for today's session. We have with us Mr. Dheeraj Kaushik. He's an entrepreneur and technical expert. He has over 20 years of experience in software industry. He did his PGP Pro last year in 2021 from UCLA. Before that, he did his master's MTech in computer science from IIT Delhi in 2007 and BE also from computer science back in 2002. As I said, he has over 20 years of experience in software industry. He's an expert in entrepreneurial ventures, design thinking, and techno business innovations. Apart from that, he has served as a director with several companies and also as CEO of NSUT IAF, which is a technology business incubator funded by Government of Delhi, hosted by NSUT Delhi. So he's CEO at NSUT IAF. He started his career in IT industry with C. And then he moved on to ST Microelectronics and also worked with Connextent Systems, Synopsys, and Cadence. So as you can imagine, he has an exposure in across domains, industries. So we have a really good opportunity to learn from such an expert today. Because of his wide exposure, his style becomes very unique to solve business problems. With these words, I welcome on behalf of IIC Institute Innovation Council DTU and also Department of Electronics and Communication DTU. I welcome Mr. Dheeraj Kaushik. I will hand over the session to you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Ganesh. Thanks a lot for the nice introduction. And I am equally excited to actually interact with students. I am really passionate to interact with the student entrepreneurs. Just before we start the session, this was a brief about me. So I, looking at the roll numbers which are flashing on the people list, this seems to be like the 4th year students, right? One of you can unmute yourself and confirm. All of you are 4th semester students. Sorry, I'm wrong there. 4th semester students, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 4th semester. Yes, sir.
Fourth semester student. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because
sir, and our HOD is also joined. Sir will. Our department HOD sir is also joined.
Sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dheeraj ji.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. I think this seminar will be surely and helpful to all my students who have joined, and I think they will get more knowledge from you, and they explore it in future also about the details what you are going to give it in the seminar. I think I appreciate the work of Ganesh and his persons who are working in for developing this particular coursework, and I request you to continue, sir. That will be a very great thing.
Sure. Dr. Raghava, thanks a lot for welcoming me and giving me this opportunity. I am also really looking forward to add some value to the students. It's moreover like this squibble rather than a straight line. So this essentially is our frame of reference when we talk about rest of the other things, tools, methodologies around entrepreneurship. And one must embrace the squibble that it's not a straight line, it is going to be like that. Now, what business model canvas is one of the tools or methods for generating, prototyping, and testing business ideas. It is essentially part of how do you put together a business idea in the form of a business model, and business model canvas is one of the tools for that. So there are multiple tools available around this particular space in which you identify uh, to ideate, to generate ideas, to mull over it, to validate them, to test them. And design thinking and business model canvas are basically two key ideas around this particular space. Of course, in order to come up with a complete business pitch, you need to have a good understanding of design thinking, business model canvas. Then you should have a good understanding of customer development and experiments around customer development, which ultimately leads you to create a business pitch. So business pitch is, once we cover the business model canvas, I'll briefly touch upon the business pitch part, because that is what, is the useful part of it, useful part of learning how to create a business model canvas, and how do you utilize it as a part of your business pitch. Now, briefly, before I start with the business model canvas, because these two things are very, in my understanding, very closely tied with each other. So, a couple of slides on design thinking process. So, design thinking process is essentially using design to create, innovate, and solve the problems. So, another is the reachability part. How do you reach to them? And the third is, how do you do that to and fro? What sort of transactional relationship you have with, and through what all platforms do you have that sort of a transactional relationship with the customers. In the center, you have the value proposition. Value proposition is essentially your offering, what exactly you are bringing, what value you are bringing to the table, what value you are offering to your customers. On the infrastructure side, what key activities you will do in order to provide this particular value proposition to this segment of customers through this set of channels, this particular value that you wish to deliver. In order to do that, the what set of key activities that you need to do. Now, in order to perform those key activities, what sort of key resources you will need to perform those key activities? It might include hardware, it might include resources. If you are creating a software product which you are offering to your customer, then probably you will need, of course, you will need a data center, you will need some sort of a cloud infrastructure, or if you are developing in-house, you will need some sort of hardware actually. You will have to provide systems to the people actually, or the software developers working for you. And on the resources side, you will need managers, you will need software developers, you will need testers, you will need marketing and sales people also, right? So all those key resources, which includes both human as well as other physical resources, will be listed down in the KR part. And then what sort of key partnerships will you need? Will you have to partner with the AWS to avail Amazon credits, or will you have to partner with Google and Microsoft, or will you have to partner with some other solution provider for getting licenses for certain software, or will you have to partner with some sort of a logistics service provider? Will you have to partner with some marketing agency who will be handling your digital marketing and other stuff? So those are the key partnerships actually, which can be both your in order to enable your forward and backward integration. It could be anybody in the overall value chain, which can be your potential partner, which makes you stronger. On the revenue side, actually, you will have certain revenue streams because you will be offering these value to your customers, so your customers will be paying you. They'll be subscribing monthly, they'll be going for a monthly subscription, or they'll be going for a yearly license. They'll be or they'll be buying it off the shelf. So there will be a certain revenue stream for you. And at the same time, since you are doing certain key activities, key resources through some key channels, you will have some cost structure also, you will have some expenses also, which will include your salaries, which will include your marketing cost, which will include your licensing cost, which will include some cost to buy the hardware, pay the rental for your offices, pay other service provider around logistics and transportation, etc. So that will become part of your cost structure. Now, this revenue and the cost structure essentially, and looking at this particular business model canvas, if you look back at the feasibility aspect, at the design thinking aspect of things also, you will see that all this customer part actually focuses on the desirability aspect of it. Who is desiring this solution actually? So that talks about the customer part, which is the human aspect of it. This key activities, key resources, key partnerships, this is more about the feasibility part of it. And these cost and revenue part basically dictates your viability aspect of things. So essentially all these things, design thinking, whether you when you talk in terms of desirability, feasibility, viability, or when you talk about these 9 column, this 9 column tool which is called the business model canvas, essentially they talk about similar things, and then they bifurcate things into much more granular detail in case of a business model canvas. But essentially this cost and revenue part, if once you calculate all your revenue and you have all your cost, of course you come up with the viability aspect. You get to know whether this is going to be a profitable business or is it's not going to be a profitable business down the line. Not precisely at this particular moment, but down the line. So essentially, so before I move into these individual subcomponents and elaborate over it, any questions till now? So I would love to have this session, in an interactive fashion. So if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, and then we can take those questions one by one. Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Everything is clear.
Yes, sir.
Interesting. Okay. Now, so so essentially, these are all hypotheses. I mean, to be very frank, having been part of several ventures, some of which eventually closed down, or some of which did succeed also. So all these things, nobody can guess in the beginning of the venture itself. Say suppose you come up with an idea, then all these things that you put in this particular canvas, they are assumptions only. You assume that this will appeal to youngsters in the age bracket of 20 to 25 years. This is again an assumption. I am creating some sort of an application, and this application is only meant to be for youngsters, and because youngsters, they do love to spend time on social media. I'm creating some sort of a unique kind of a social media, that is what my idea is around, with some unique proposition around it. So I'll start putting those assumptions, because but again these things will be my assumptions only. Why I'm calling them assumptions? Because they have not been tested as of now. Once you test them, then those hypotheses or assumptions, they are much more concrete afterwards. So you start putting the assumptions only. So this 9 column thing is, once you have an idea and you start working on preparing your business model canvas, essentially what you are putting in this particular canvas is a set of assumptions only. Uh, Assumptions about your customer segments, assumptions about your customer channel, because you have not created anything as of yet. As of yet, there is nothing on the ground. Everything is being written on paper only, and this canvas is what we have, and we don't have anything else. Sometimes we do have other data also, verifiable data also, but primarily whatever goes into this particular thing is, to begin with, actually, is a set of assumptions. Now, uh, assumptions or hypothesis is a guess. It's more of a guess about how will you create, deliver, and capture value. Essentially, the set of assumptions or hypothesis is all about creating, delivering, and capturing the value. Let me take an example to illustrate it, like what a business model canvas would look like, for if I take Apple iPod as an example. Like all of
Sorry to disturb you, sir. Can you make it full screen, please?
Sure. Is it better now?
Yes, thank you.
Can you guys verify? Is it better now?
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So, essentially, if we look at Apple iPod, say suppose if we take the case for Apple iPod. So what the business model canvas would have looked like for Apple iPod, actually, when Apple started working on it. So the customer segment for Apple iPod at that particular point, and again this is a set of assumptions, was an assumption that it is a mass market, that it will appeal to everyone. There is no specific customer segment that it will appeal to. I think everybody loves listening to music. So this is an assumption. This might be wrong also, but the assumption, one of the assumptions that can be put there is that it is a mass market thing. So everybody, be a professor or a student or a elderly person or or uh, or a housewife, everybody loves, or a fitness enthusiast, everybody loves listening to music. So it's a mass market thing. So there is no need to kind of segment it based upon the sex, based upon demography, based upon age, or anything else. Now the channels, how will you basically sell it? Or how will this be available to your customers? Through Apple stores, through your retail stores, through your iTunes stores. You can buy it online also, or you can buy it from apple.com also. So those are the channels essentially where this set of customers will be able to go and experience and buy your product actually. So that is the channel aspect of it. Now, what the customer relationship will be, how will customers relate to this particular product. So relationship with the product actually, or the customer relationship part, is a very uh, multifaceted kind of a set of assumptions there. You can interpret customer relationship in multiple ways. So one of the key things that usually people who create sticky products, or people who look at creating products which are habit forming, or which are going to basically be the products which are going to stay around, they spend a lot of time in this particular column to think and position the product accordingly. So Apple decided that it is going to be a product which will leave a mark behind. So people will love that particular product because of various factors associated with it. And then they will have a switching cost also. Once you have Apple iPod, once you have iTunes subscription, you are bound to it. It is not like my normal MP3 player where you can just buy it from Apple and then download music from someone else and listen over it. So that is not. So they spend a lot of time thinking in terms of what their customer engagement is going to be going forward once the customer is onboarded. So that involved a lot of switching cost. Today, if you have iPod and iTunes subscription also, if you have to switch to something else, it has a switching cost, because your device is useless once you switch away from it. You cannot use the same iPod with any other service provider, and then there is a certain stickiness to it. So this aspect was there in their business model. Uh, the value proposition that they offered at that particular point of time was seamless music experience. So you can it's not that you need to at any point of time there are millions of songs lying in the cloud. You pay, or if you have a subscription, you can listen to whatever you want to listen. So it's seamless. You don't have to buy an album, or you don't have to buy a record actually for that particular sake. At any point of time, you whatever you wish to listen, that is available on the cloud, and you get to listen to it. Now, the key activities that you need to do to provide this offering to the customer is you need to design a device. So there is a hardware. So one of the activity was to design that particular hardware, and another key activity was to basically market that particular hardware as well. And of course, another key activity that can be put over there is to develop the firmware, develop the software, develop other stuff also around it. So both hardware, software, everything has to be designed. Now, the key resources that you will need basically to create such a product. Of course, you will need people. You will need hardware also. You will need software, iTunes software also. You will need the content and the agreements also. You will have to have those agreements with the music owners also, people who own those records. You need to have, and of course, you will be utilizing the Apple brand also as one of the key resources. Well, that brand part again goes as a part of the offering, because for all the Apple products, that Apple brand or the logo is very tangible thing. You get to see the moment you pick up the product. Actually, that is the one of the key things that is visible on the product. So that is another key resource that goes into it. And in terms of partnerships, if you look, then the partnership you need to have with the manufacturers. Maybe you need to get it manufactured in China, so you need to have those kind of partnerships with people who can do that mass production for you, then you need to have key partnership with the record companies, which are essentially going to provide this seamless music that you are going to provide through your hardware in a very immersive way. So those particular partnerships will also be needed. Now, how will you generate revenue from this product? You will have music revenues. People will listen. People will buy songs. People will have subscriptions. You will have, and then you will have some hardware revenues also, which is essentially once somebody buys an Apple iPod, they'll be paying for the hardware also. So that will be the hardware revenue part. Now, what will be the cost of offering this particular? So you will spend some money in manufacturing it. You will pay people in terms of salaries and in terms of your contractual staff or whatever you have to pay that contracting salary and everything else. And then you will have the marketing and the sales expenses also. So this is again a very high level picture I'm painting for you. Maybe the actual business model canvas, I don't know what it would have looked like, but this is just to illustrate that what a business model canvas would look like for a non-product actually, which all of us have experienced. So any questions till this point? Okay, let me put it this way. Any one of you who is already aware of business model canvas?
No, sir, but this is a really nice slide that I think was self-explanatory, and you explained it. Because this is in our experience, Apple iPod, and you just broke it down how every, from manufacturing to marketing, how it goes into every section of the canvas.
Right. So what I would so what I would now I would like to come back to the overlap of both the design thinking and the business model aspect. So essentially, this desirability is all about your customer, the human aspect of it. Feasibility is all about infrastructure. Viability is all about finances, and at the intersection of it is you have the value proposition. Now, before I get into value proposition and the details of what value proposition would be, I would just like to take a sort of a vote, like how many of you are already working on some ideas. You may actually raise your hands if you are working on some idea. Somebody who is in the process of creating their own startup at this particular moment. Okay. Seems like I am not seeing any raised hands, so maybe. But I would love to see people experimenting around these ideas. So the fun part of learning something is to apply it. So even though you guys might not be pursuing a business idea at this particular moment, but it doesn't take anything away from you if you are learning a tool, then apply it to something which you might not necessarily apply straight away, but which will become handy for, or which will come handy to you once you are in that particular process. So now, breaking it down into individual components. So this value proposition, what is this value proposition which is at the center of this business model canvas? So basically, value proposition is all about what value do we deliver to customers. So start thinking whenever you are in the process of creating a startup, or whenever you are in the process of creating a scalable business. Startup is essentially a scalable business, nothing else. Think in terms of value that you are going to deliver to your customer. Now, value could be multiple things. Value could be helping a customer achieve whatever they are doing at this particular moment, maybe more efficiently. So you create some sort of a productivity tool, or you create a software which allows people to basically, whatever they are doing in their day-to-day life, it allows them to do it much more efficiently. We can have example of such software products. Adobe Suite is a set of products which basically helps all the digital creators assemble their workflows around their particular tools, wherein they can create efficiently. Otherwise, people might have been doing those things with hand also previously, but with this particular suite available, they can do it. Now, providing it in cloud takes it one step further, wherein you can, pay as you use. So if you want to use a certain tool from Adobe for 1 month, you can take a monthly subscription. So that these things actually, not only in terms of its technical feature, but its ease of use, its availability. There are several other things which can offer value. Value is not only offered in terms of the technical features, but value is also offered in terms of the price point. Value is also offered in terms of the packaging, the form factor. Value is also offered in terms of the ease of availability. Like if it is I don't need to install that particular thing on my machine. I can use everything in cloud itself. So that is the ease of use. So try to identify whenever you are thinking on a startup idea, think in terms of the value that you deliver to your customer. That is all about value proposition. Value proposition need not to be necessarily a technical feature. Sometimes a technical feature is a value proposition, but then at times, you will find that most of the things that are being offered around you, they are they are a combination of technical features plus couple of other things. So that is what basically value proposition is all about. There are several other things mentioned here, like risk reduction. Uh, it could be you are offering something which is you are providing a backup service to the customers, wherein you are providing iCloud services to the customers so that their data is secure in cloud somewhere, and that sync up is happening automatically. So those are the typical examples of which, quote unquote, usually we think in terms of the product or in terms of service or in terms of a feature, but there are a couple of other things around it. When we look at the feasibility part, or which is the infrastructure part of it, primarily it comes down to what do we do to basically offer the value proposition that we have discussed in the previous slide. Now, once you have identified that this is a value proposition, you have done some sort of a validation also that yes, customers will be ready to pay for this particular thing. This is a real problem that customers are facing, and this will really, whatever we are offering is going to really add value to the customers. Then you start talking about the feasibility aspect of it. In order to gauge the feasibility aspect of it, first you need to understand what do you need to do to basically deliver that value. Uh, what all activities will be needed to be done, what all resources will be required or for us to do that, what all partners we'll need in order to deliver, because everything you won't be able to do. So you will have to have some key partnerships with people around you who are maybe expert around some of those areas, core areas, which you can actually pick up from them because they are good at it, they specialize into it. So why not instead of developing something from scratch, why not get it from them? So you get it from them, you come up with some partnerships, and under certain licensing agreement you get them, and then you integrate them within your product. Now, once you have listed all these things, what you need to do in order to deliver this value, you can uh, uh, you can put certain assumptions about the feasibility part of it, that I'll partner with X, Y, and Z. Now, this is still an assumption because the partnership has not been signed actually as of yet, but you will put it there. I'll partner with Google, I'll partner with Microsoft, I'll partner with Uber, for my employees to reach at that particular place, or I'll partner with Zomato to provide lunch to my resources or to the people coming to my premises. So those are typical assumptions that you will put there. Of course, those have to be tested later on. Now, coming to the third aspect, to the second aspect of it, which is the desirability part. That okay, value proposition. While you have thought about the value proposition, of course you thought about real customers. But let us now drill down into what the customer, what the desirability aspect is when it comes down to our customers. You will look at what type of relationships or services that will drive the acquisition, retention, and the sales. what sort of service you need to provide in order to acquire these customers. How do you reach out to these customers? How do you communicate with these customers that this is the value proposition that I am offering? Unless and until you educate me that your my product is doing this, is helping you in this and this way, I am not going to buy it, right? So that those are the key things that you start thinking. Okay, I am creating a product, maybe I'll directly sell to the customers. So I'll create a D2C platform. Or otherwise, like Apple, you will say, I'll create Apple experience stores where people can come and they can exclusively experience just our product. I am not going to put my products next to Samsung or to Nokia or to anything coming from Huawei or Intel or any other company. I'm going to create exclusive stores. So you need to think about that. And will people need any sort of a personal assistance for them to use my product? A lot many companies do that today. If you buy a AC from LG, AC from Hitachi, or any brand, actually, their exclusive, their person will come over and will install that product, demo it. For all the home appliances and everything else, that sort of a personal assistance is available. They even offer you 2 or 3 complementary services which could be availed within the first year of the product acquisition. So whether you will need any sort of personal assistance, any dedicated personal assistance might be required. Like typically in banking, you will have your relationship manager who will look into your finances, who will see what sort of inflows you have. They will suggest you product depending upon your age, depending upon your relationship status, if you are married, if you are single, if you have kids. So that is more of a dedicated personal assistance. Third option could be more of a self-service side, that you have a portal available, and you go there, you log in, and then you can avail self-service. You can typically for something like Dish TV or your any other DTH service provider, or you will have, you can do that auto renewal through WhatsApp chatbots, or you can do it through websites. Or so that is a typical mode of self-service, where typical problems that the customers face, they can go there, deactivating a credit card, or setting up the limits. Those are the kind of things that are available in the self-service mode to your customer. Or will you have some sort of a automated service? Sir, your AC was serviced 6 months back. Now probably with IoT and all, this automated service is quite possible. The pressure of the gas within your compressor is below a certain level, and you probably need to have service. The device is not optimally performing with IoT and all. That is also possible. Or otherwise, you can interact with your customers through a community of interest. You create some sort of a Discord channel to address your customers. You put them into a Discord channel. Typically, who would do that? Somebody who is like if you are a customer of Binance, if you are a customer of all these Bitcoin related coin related and crypto related platforms, you will have Discord channels. People will create their exchange, and then you will have Discord channels in which through which the creators basically interact with them. There are several other ways by which you can serve your customers by creating community. If I am creating a Raspberry Pi, then I create a community of hardware enthusiasts, and then those hardware enthusiasts basically interact with my dedicated engineers actually working on prototyping and creating new sort of DIY stuff actually, and then I interact with my customers through those communities of interest. Another this is more of the relationship type. On the channel types, how will you basically either it will be a direct sales force which will reach out to the customer, show them the product, demo the product, and sell it to you. Otherwise, D2C is possible, which is direct to customer. I can create my own website and I can sell my products over it. I am maybe creating some sort of exquisite leather outfits or leather products. Then I can create my D2C platform and directly sell it to my customers. I can have my own stores. I can have partner stores. I can have partnership with wholesalers. So those are like more of a channels kind of thing. So And once you have finalized the relationship channels and all those things, and then customer segmentation is one thing wherein you try to answer this one question, which is for whom you are creating value. You try to narrow it down actually. Why do you narrow it down? You narrow it down because you want to focus on them first, rather than focusing on why do we need customer segmentation. Because initially we want to focus, actually we want to have a target group, and we want to have a smaller target group so that we can entirely focus on them. I cannot create a campaign or spend all my marketing dollar reaching out to all sort of customers. Even on Facebook, my marketing budget will just break break away whatever I have allocated. So this has to be done. We need to basically narrow down on those specific segment of customers who are our focus groups actually. Now, once you have identified the customer and worked on the customer aspect of it, then you come to the finances part, which is more of the viability aspect of it. Now, once the viability aspect comes into picture, it is more about the cost and the revenue part. What all cost will be involved? You have already identified the key activities, key resources, key partnerships. Of course, everybody will take money from you. In order to do something, you need to spend money, right? That is common sense. Now, once you have identified that, you will come up with a list of bunch of cost. uh, you you will try to minimize them. In order to minimize them, somewhere you will club up the partners. Uh, instead of partnering with the two different partners, you will probably look out for a partner which will be able to make two offerings in one relationship. So you will try to explore those kind of things. And so you can the decisions there will be dependent on, basically, to maximize the value that we offer to the customer. So it's a value driven to maximize the value. So whatever value you are deriving from that particular relationship, you try to maximize it. That if I am paying $100 for this particular thing, then of course I am getting a value which is much more than what I am basically paying to this particular relationship. On the revenue side, how you are capturing, what is your metric actually? Are you charging them per hour? Are you charging them monthly, weekly, or is it like a one time kind of a thing, or is it a recurring kind of a payment that they have to make? Is it a fixed pricing or a dynamic pricing? Is it something that on weekends I'll change, or or maybe on holidays I'll be changing them? Like typically with your room rentals in hospitality industry, you're depending upon what season it is, whether it is peak season. So you will have sort of a dynamic pricing. So those are the kind of things that will derive your assumptions on the revenue structure. Once those assumptions are there in place, of course, then the maths can follow, and you can come up with the detailed numbers as far as the overall cash flows are concerned. So somebody from the accounting background can understand that. Then you can do a cash flow analysis, and maybe the valuation also for the idea that you are basically pitching for, in terms of discounted cash flow. And there are other tools available around that, wherein you could put some rough numbers around the valuation of this particular business idea also. So roughly it is divided between, like, it's more the viability aspect of it is around the cost and the revenue structure. Now, before I open it to question and Q&A, any doubts, anything that you wish to ask till now? Any questions, guys?
Sir, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
In the example that you showed for iPod,
Mm-hmm.
it might be possible that during development of such a product, the management already knows about the industry disruption aspect of the product, that it might actually disrupt the entire industry, especially
Uh-huh.
during iPhone. So during business model canvas, during planning all of this, do they figure that also in the canvas somewhere in some section? Does that
So,
play any part during the development
mhm.
of the product, the prior expectation that this might be disrupting the entire industry?
So, so I would say, see, the disruption element actually is again, is uh, captured by the business model in itself. And of course there are other ways in which you can capture disruptions. Typically Porter's five forces analysis is people do around, how much disruptive this will be. Like, if there are already incumbents in the market, like in case of Apple iPhone, Nokia was already there actually. When iPhone came, there were phones available. There was not phones with the cameras and beautiful interfaces were not there, but Symbian OS was there before iOS came. So typically there are tools available, but how much the disruption will be, actually that particular part is not captured in the business model canvas. So business model canvas will essentially uh, um, answer your assumptions, but in order to arrive at those particular assumptions, how stronger the disruption would be, I think Porter's five forces analysis is a better tool to do that. So
Okay. So just to follow up, does that mean study of competition also doesn't fall on the canvas somewhere?
so on the canvas side actually, so competition becomes part of your strategy, where you think about the three C's actually. When you start thinking about the three C's, that is one of and customer segmentation. So that three C's part, before you land up at business model canvas actually, that 3C analysis, that five forces analysis, those are like typically done along with the business model canvas also. So business model canvas will be will give you certain will give you a platform to put your assumptions after doing all those analysis actually to test. So essentially this is something which you can say that this is that executable that you can run uh, uh, within a period of, say, in a cycle of 30 days each, as Ash Maurya famously puts in his running lean, that you can create 30 days cycle, three cycles in 90 days, and you can test these assumptions. So this is something which is more of, if I speak in terms of software engineering, this is more of a executable put to test. But what gets into this particular executable, and how strong those assumptions are, of course those analysis have to be done before coming up with the business model canvas.
Thank you, sir. Any
So
other
some
questions?
so
Yeah.
some prior work is definitely needed in terms of understanding of the industry, in terms of understanding the competition, understanding the customer, understanding the company also. Company as in like your own strength. See, even if you are a startup actually, then also you are a venture. So you are a set of founders and then maybe initial couple of employees also, and you will have some resources, some sort of competencies also. So that 3C analysis does help actually before you take up, or before you start venturing onto a given idea. That is what my thought is actually.
Okay, so what I gathered from that is the each section that you showed on the canvas actually might be very detailed uh, based on
Exactly.
assumptions. Yeah.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And what you can do is that create the business model canvas also in phases, because this is going to be a living document. So instead of testing, say, these are 9 columns. In each of these 9 columns, if I start putting 9 assumptions, then of course it is going to be overall 81 assumptions that I need to work upon. But what you can do is actually you can start with the most riskiest one. That this is probably something which is the most risky one. If this assumption is not true, then this entire house will crumble down actually. So what you can do is that instead of testing those 81 assumptions in one go, you will pick up the most riskiest one, put it on your business model canvas, and remove the less riskier one. You can test them later, and you can create something maybe in which you have 2 or 3 assumptions in each of these columns, and then you start with that particular version of the business model canvas. Of course, some of the assumptions will sail through, some of the assumptions won't sail through, and then you might have to bring in some other assumptions based upon the insights that you get within these 30 days cycle, 30 days each. So essentially what Ash Maurya says, and I'm a big fan of him, in running lean, he says that your business model canvas is your product. So fit in your brain that you are not producing Apple iPod. You are, what your goal is to first come up with this particular business model. So your product of your venture, the first product of your venture is the business model itself. So that is what their contention is, that think in those lines, don't think in terms of, because many of us rush to create the product. The moment we have an idea, we rush to create a product, we invest our life savings, we pull in our friends, we launch, we create, we run after those things, which is, of course, all the enthusiasm is all about building, and engineers specifically are very, very enthusiastic about creating stuff. But he emphasizes that that your business model is your product. Actually, think in those lines, that this is what I need to refine. I need to continuously work on my business model. Whatever is coming out of that particular business model is the value which my customers are paying me for, that particular value. But the product or the center of whatever I'm trying to do is my business model. So that is the theme. And what do you test through these iterations of 30 days? You basically test the traction, whether you are getting, or your assumptions basically. And all those assumptions basically culminate into what? Traction. That is the requirement from the customer side. Yeah, dude, throw it at me, I'll buy it, I'll pay you money. So that is what we want to basically test. And if we get to hear those kind of things, once we offer this business model, or we offer these assumptions, once these things are put to test, and these are the kind of sounds that we are getting from the market or from our customers, we are on the good track as far as the progress is concerned. And this is what you do typically in 90 days, and 90 days is sufficient enough for testing any business model.
Thanks, sir. Any other questions? Okay, we can move on.
Okay, so I have reached end of my presentation. There are a couple of books that I would like to share with you guys. Of course, I mean, I don't see much response in terms of somebody having a business idea. Otherwise, we could have discussed their idea and tried to create a canvas out of it. But not everybody is supposed to be an entrepreneur and or an entrepreneur at this moment itself. So these are the few books that you can refer to. There are 3 of them which I'll encourage highly. You guys should always look for this book, Business Model Generation, which is Alex Osterwalder's book, and it has a lot of sample business model canvases also available. You can go through it, read it. It's a very interesting read. Lean Startup, everybody knows Eric Ries, whosoever has tried to get their hands dirty in this space actually. So this is also one of the very good books. And Running Lean, this iterate from plan A to a plan that works. Again, this is from Ash Maurya. Latest edition has been released in March itself. I am on this particular book at this particular moment. So far, very interesting, very refined book. Brings in a very nice and a very precise perspective about all these things. So these are the 3 books. These are like must if you really wish to have a venture of your own someday. These are very good reads. You guys should definitely get hands on them. And there are interesting communities also available around these spaces. Lean Stack, Ash Maurya has a very good community, great community around Lean Canvas. You can join that. He has certain free webinars also. Feel free to attend them. And at the end of it, I would like to conclude it with and this is what I firmly believe, all of us, we dream big actually. We want to do something big in life, and every now and then we get to hear that there are people who have done something great in their lives, and which essentially always motivates us to also do something great. But how do you do great things actually? By doing something little actually. So you start with the baby steps, uh, uh, and this is very well summarized in Charles Spurgeon's quote, and the way to do nothing at all is to continually resolving that you will do everything. So don't do everything. This is what I would suggest. Do very few little things actually at a time, and then once you get into that particular habit, you will see that
Should
you
we
can
stop
achieve
then?
a great deal of it. That's it from my side, guys, for this session. Once again, I thanks a lot, Mr. Ganesh, for giving me this opportunity to interact with you guys. I hope you did enjoy the session.
Thank you, sir. This was indeed an enjoyable session. Really nice slides with self-explanatory features. Uh, if you have time, I just wanted to talk to you about a few more things, a few
Sure,
doubts that I have from the
sure,
presentation.
sure.
So one thing is, how do you validate any value proposition that you might have? And second, I wanted to ask about testing the traction or testing your assumptions. So if you could expand more on the testing part. How do I make sense what I gather as information is, how do I relate to my assumptions, and is it correct or not, or how do I trust basically?
So, so sometimes, see, testing an assumption will actually, you can use multiple tools without even creating a product sometimes. And most of the time, you should not create a product actually. So typically, there are two ways in which people have been reaching out to their potential customers to validate actually. When it comes to validation, there is one traditional approach, which is to build and then test, which is essentially build first and then sell. So you build something tangible, and you have the product in hand, and then you go to the customer and tell them, and that essentially is a test in itself, because either you will pay me money for this or you won't pay me. You will say it is a useless thing for me. You will reach out to 10 people, maybe two will say that we will get it, and maybe eight people, out of whom I reach out to, will come back to me and say that we are not ready to pay even a single penny for it. We don't need it. Now that is the traditional approach. Another approach is that instead of creating this, I create a blueprint of it. So I create a blueprint of it. It could be a video, it could be a storyboard, it could be a cardboard kind of a. I could create, instead of actually creating this physical product with this plastic molding machine and investing uh, into a partner who will at least create 10,000 of these for me. I create some sort of a blueprint for it. Now, this particular blueprint is not this product itself. Actually, it is an assumption about it is the design and other assumptions around the business model for this particular product. Now, I can go and test these individual assumptions using various tools and techniques. One of the tools that people tend to use is the surveying thing, and which particularly works for the customer segmentation assumptions. So assumptions in all those nine actually things could be tested in different ways. Like uh, you can have an assumption that this particular product will be liked by people who are in the age bracket of so and so, who are females working in urban areas, who are working women who lives in earning so and so. So what you will do, you will create a survey. You will, through your secondary market research company, your market research companies, or either you can outsource it, you can do it on your own also, and then you can come up with a questionnaire, and based upon those surveys actually you can test those assumptions. Of course, you will get some data, and you will have to structure those surveys accordingly, so that you get the maximum value out of those numbers, those answers that you are getting from your customers. The assumptions that are most difficult to to test are the customer relationships actually, because there you don't know, because there is no product as of yet, there is no customer, there is no customer relationship. So testing those customer relationships is really really difficult actually, assumptions around that particular space. And there actually, prior experience or some drawing something from an equivalent something in some other different industry does help you. With the Apple iPhone also, why Steve Jobs was successful, because he came up with certain insights about customer relationship from the iMac era. So he knew certain things from that particular space, and he knew certain which he used to say, we are trying to create products which customers even don't know they would like to buy. So those are the very difficult things to test, because there is no market out for them. There is customers are not even aware of those kind of things. So testing them in a market is actually difficult, but those comes with experience actually, with domain expertise. But rest of the assumptions around key resources, key partnerships, your key activities, cost and revenue, uh, those are the assumptions that typically you have data available with you, and you can create some limited experiments to basically test also. So like pre-launch products, usually people pre-launch, some of the products are pre-launched and you gauge the response. So in pre-launch you have two different options: either you pay me 6 months upfront cost and then I'll offer you this particular discount, or you pay me the overall entire this thing, I'll offer you that particular discount, or you pay me one time at the beginning of it, or you pay some deferred payment. So those are the kind of things that you can uh, you can have pre-launch things actually. So assumptions around so there are various ways by which you can test these assumptions without even creating a product. So many companies do that. Typically things that are developed through crowdfunding and all, they get to play around with these things very easily, because there that is part of their product development philosophy. They're going to develop things only if they are going to have this many number of subscribers. So which is essentially putting that assumption at test, that this product is doable if I have some early 1,000 adopters. Now if this is an assumption, I'll have a pre-launch page and I'll do marketing. I'll spend marketing dollar and see if I am able to attract 1,000 customers who are ready to pay upfront. That validates, that in itself validates my assumption around it. So there are various tools, under various columns. There are, you can play around with a lot of things, but most difficult ones are the customer relationships one. Humans are very complex. Rest of the things you can figure out very easily, but testing those assumptions are really difficult. At least I have found them very difficult. Yeah.
Uh, okay, I see Kirtan Solanki has raised a hand. Is there a question?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Yeah.
Sir, how do you uh, you know, how do you test your product in a highly competitive market? Because the problem over there will be, if I'm a startup, assuming that, and I'm testing my product, and then if you know a larger company than me comes across my product, then they
Mhm.
can scale up that product like very easily. Then what do you do in that situation? Like the
Okay.
basic question is how to test a product in a highly competitive market.
So see, the thing is that see, the market, whichever market you pick is highly competitive, right? So first of all, if you are bringing in something disruptive, there are a couple of other tools by which you can understand the. So you need to understand the industry. If you are entering into a industry which is highly competitive in terms of margins, in terms of offerings, in terms of already existing relationships. Now you need to understand the industry first. See, what Netflix was able to do with the Blockbuster. What Blockbuster was trying to do in US at that particular point of time when Netflix came. It was a highly competitive industry. They had brick and mortar stores. They had a huge edge over something like Netflix. They used to ship. If I need to get a movie, I can walk into a Blockbuster store and I can immediately get it. While in case of Netflix, it used to take around 3 to 4 days for their CD to be shipped in. right? So the thing is that, though it is a market, so you need to first understand the market. In order to understand the market, first of all, what makes you say that it is highly competitive market, you need to do that Porter's 5 forces analysis. So that is another tool, another discussion for another day. But you can do that Porter's 5 forces analysis. That will give you a fair amount of understanding in terms of where you stand in the market. Now your competition is going to have an edge over you uh, because of various reasons. Maybe because of forward and backward integration, maybe because of switching cost for the customers. Your product is really good, but I am tied with customer A, sorry, vendor A. I cannot switch onto your product. So you need to particularly understand that. Now, uh, uh, and that should not discourage you from entering such an industry, which is a highly competitive industry. Now, one key thing which consistently people have. So what you do in that depends upon what industry you are entering, and that will depend upon having the insight for that specific industry to answer part A of your question. Now, the part B, what not to do when you are entering into a highly competitive industry is, there are few things that I can share. Usually, people who enter into a very highly competitive industry, they tend to actually break into the industry by lowering down their price. So that is one of the worst mistakes that you can do. So I can tell you a couple of things that you should never do while you enter into a highly competitive industry. You should not try to get into that price war with anyone. That is the biggest mistake that you can do, because your competition can very well do that, can bring down the prices, right? And that is the biggest mistake that Blockbuster also committed when it wanted to fight with Netflix. It tried to bring down the cost, while it should not have. It should never have done that particular thing, because you cannot actually compete with Netflix, which is operating out of a warehouse in Arizona, while I have to maintain these brick and mortar store all across the country. I have my margins are already less, and if I want to, if I wish to squeeze them further, I am getting into a danger zone. So don't play on that particular pricing part. And then the second mistake that most of the people tend to do around that space is to mimic something, or to kind of copy something which others are, and to provide a cheap alternative of what they are trying to do. So don't do those kind of things, unless and until. So those are like don'ts kind of a thing. What you do, that
ये
depends
पूछ
upon
सकते
that particular industry inside.
हैं
So you do something
इन
which
बुक्स में
brings
से
in the
पहले कौन
value
सी से
out of it.
स्टार्ट करें?
See what Netflix did
He already
was
knows the
really,
books. He
they
told
offered
these
a
books.
value over
Where should I start out
over
of
what
these books?
what the brick and mortar stores can't provide actually. The value was that you can order anything.
नहीं,
Brick
I'll
and
ask.
mortar stores did have some limitations.
I want to know.
They can't house everything, while their warehouse in somewhere in Arizona could actually house everything. You get an order, and then you had fair amount of 3-4 days to actually pick it up from somewhere and then ship it. So you can get pretty much everything out of their catalog. While in a brick and mortar store, half of it would have been rented to someone. Only few will be available off the shelf. So that was a value actually that they offered. So try to gauge that value. That is very important, and that will depend upon what specific industry. So you need to study that industry in order to answer that question.
Okay, sir, got it. Thank you.
Anything else, guys?
Someone else also had raised their hand, I think. Questions? सर इसको म्यूट करेंगे एक बारी वो स्पीकर
And one of the key things, see, guys, I would highlight is that it is it is very important to learn not to do things, because as entrepreneurs, see, we sometimes we are and typically we have been brought up into brought up with a mindset that come what may, we should take it as a challenge, and we should never say no, and you know let us take everything head on. That is the biggest mistake an entrepreneur can do. So never do that, and one should never do that in life also. So learn to say no, and then learn to say no to things which are not important, and sometimes learn to say no to things which might appear important also, but in the overall scheme of things, when you compare them with the other important things, are lesser important actually. So identifying what not to do is, I think, the key to success. Then, identifying what to do, because really in your life, what to do will be a really difficult answer. When you will pose that question to me, what should I do if I am in a highly competitive, so my answer will always, that depends actually. I'll have to, because that is something for which I need to have that domain expertise, and lot many people don't have actually. Like, I'm not a domain expert over everything. Even if we had bandwidth at this particular moment, and you would have said that I am entering into FMCG, or if I am entering into this so and so sector, so probably, you will either you will not be an expert in that particular area, you will not be able to find an expert in that particular area with with that particular reliability that you would be expecting him to answer that particular question. So knowing what to do will always be hazy. It will always be difficult to figure out what to do. But trust me, this is what I am sharing with my experience. What not to do is fairly easy to figure out, relatively. I'm not saying that it's what not to do is like, sometimes it does flash in your eyes actually, that don't do this, but we just ignore and we keep on doing it. But relatively speaking, what to do and what not to do, if you have to compare between these two things, so not to do things are fairly easy, as compared to what to do. And it is, by eliminating these what not to do, you get to those places where you get to understand what to do, right? And of course, that has to be tested. Any assumption around what to do, of course, has to be tested also, right? What not to do can also be tested. uh, anyone else?
Any other questions, guys?
Okay,
Okay.
sir, I have one question. So, sir, how to get ourselves motivated to get involved into in this business idea?
Business India. I didn't get you. What is Business India? Startup India.
In startups.
Startups. Okay. Um, First of all, why do you want to be interested into startups? Uh, you know, why not do something else? So it is again the answer will come back to uh, what you want to do in your life. It is something. See, being a startup owner gives you a lot of liberty, to. So don't do startups. So I'll tell you why you shouldn't do a startup. Maybe that will help you to figure out why you should do it, right? So so again, kind of, working with that reverse psychology thing. See, if you want to have a very predictable life and want to have a fixed paycheck at the end of every month, don't do a startup, right? If you want to go on vacations, enjoy all your holidays, uh, you know you want to have that a straightforward life wherein you know that this is a day I work for the company, this is the day I don't work and I get to enjoy, and whatever I do at the end of the month, I'll get a fixed paycheck. Don't do a startup actually, right? If you want to be if you don't want to be questioned by your parents, by your spouse, by your neighbors, by your family, by your colleagues, by your friends, that what you are doing with your life, probably you are spoiling your life and you will end up into a rut, don't do a startup. If you don't want to have frustrating nights wherein you spend grabbing your hairs and pulling your hairs, actually what did I end up doing, actually I should have I should have something peaceful to do, something predictable to do, nothing is working for me, don't do a startup, right? And if you are happy with a predictable life, if you are happy with working for someone else, taking orders for someone else, and working for them, making them rich throughout your life by uh, you know uh, by spending your creative period of your entire life, don't work for a startup. So I think I have given you 5 reasons to not work for a startup. I mean, if any of them have already convinced you to not have a startup, well and good, then you are good. But still, if you are not convinced that why not to do a startup, I think then you will figure out the reasons on your own. It is about that creativity, it is about that independence, that liberty to do something on your own, to create something which will be the failure of it, the success of it, uh, come what may, all the good, bad, everything ugly, dirty that happens during that particular process, it is your own making, and you enjoy that particular, sense of owning that, what should I call, mess. If you really enjoy that, then startup is for you. So start.
I lost internet here.
Cancel, sir. Huh?
I lost internet.
Your belief
Okay,
in
it's
that
back.
particular vision, and then the strength in you to pull up everything that is available to you to pursue it. That is what a startup is. It's not necessarily that you create $1 billion company, but even if something that is able to generate employment for 10 people, 15 people, 5 people, and you are able to offer a value to your customer, and then you are able to scale it up, year after year, I think it's a startup. I hope I have answered that question, Rahul. It's not a straightforward answer, but I did try.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Ganesh, I think we are done with all the questions. So,
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Just to quickly summarize what we learned in this session, sir talked about the 9 columns of business model canvas, which can be broken down broadly into the feasibility part, which is the infrastructure, and the viability part, which is the finances, your cost structure, and revenue streams. We also looked at how we should first come up with the assumptions for every column. Then we can prioritize them according to their risk factor or importance, and test the high priority ones first, and then we can iterate the process. Sir touched upon some really interesting points, especially his method of let's say inverting the problem, as Charlie Munger from Berkshire Hathaway puts it. Inverting the problem, first figure out where the pitfalls are, what not to do, and out of that kind of emerges what to do. Thank you, sir. Your passion for the topic really shows through, even through a virtual medium. We're very grateful to have you speak with us. Thank you so much.
the pleasure is mine. I really hope you guys must also have enjoyed it. I thoroughly did. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot.